You have two of them, so you're good.
I don't need them anymore.
That's true as well.
All right, let's go, YouTube. Hey, there we are on the YouTube page. There's a lot of lines on that chart. But there we go. There's the old S&P 500. And we got the volume up there just the way GP likes it.
That's right.
Hey, it's bags. It's a GP and it's JFDI. Or as we just like to say, Nick, around here, these parts.
Yes.
Yes.
So we didn't have a massive up week last week. It was slightly down on the S&P, and it was down a little more on the Qs. So yeah, I mean, if you're expecting a huge volcanic eruption type move coming off of a move 2 weeks ago, it didn't happen. And we're kind of stuck in this little range here between the 21 weekly and the 50 weekly. But one thing I wanted to point out that, GP,
Yeah.
I think it's a little constructive here on the daily, right? It kind of held that breakout level that we got.
Yeah, it tried to gap underneath it, and then it got bought up 2 days in a row.
And it's holding all the moving averages on the daily, and they've all crossed over. So hey, there's some bullish sentiment from your boy Bags.
Yeah, and you can see that the volume is obviously picking up to the upside days, right? So it's inherently better behavior, but still crappy as hell. Don't get me wrong. Like as I was partying on Sunday, I said I want to be on watch for Netflix, and it was a great trade. It did really well, and then it crapped the bed for 2 days in a row. And so it's made a higher high. Right now it's making a higher low. I mean lower high as well. Since the earnings, I don't know why it refuses to get them. It's even Walmart filled the gap off of earnings, yet Netflix couldn't. So I still
Walmart had a big Dick Daddy week, though. I mean, look at Walmart, right? Like, I mean,
so for me, like Netflix is that one that I've been watching, and it still refuses to fill the gap. But when you take a look at other big daddies, Walmart had two massive gap downs as well, right? Similar to Netflix.
I mean, over the course of almost 2 years, there's only a handful of times that Walmart's gapped more than or jumped more than 5%. So
yeah,
that's a big move in a stock called Walmart.
Yeah, and it held the earnings move 2 days, and then it closed near the highs, right? Like,
yep,
that's what a strong stock behaves like, not like Netflix. So it's like, that's what I was talking about, Nick. I'm like, can we consider this a 3WT? I don't even know anymore. Because
yeah, I mean,
like it's
I
so
still like the look of it,
but it's so crappy, right? Like it's something that's been leading the markets, right? It bottomed in May, not June, not August. It bottomed in May. So it's sitting above all the moving averages. It's, well, not anymore. They close it below the 200-day EMEA on Friday, but all the huckleberries, as Duzio calls them, are repairing themselves, yet it can't get the momentum to actually move to the upside in a breakout way, right? Like even on the earnings, right? It broke out, went to like 300, and then went all the way back down to 252. It's like what? So I believe it's frustration, right? It's like, because it's not a lot of volume on the move down, but it's still it's exponential on the way down.
Yeah, I think it's I think you're generally going to see this type of behavior on names that have been pretty beaten down, just being that you're fighting that you got to climb that wall, and you're going to find sellers at every one of these kind of levels, I think.
But then explain to me Walmart, right? Because Walmart, massive nastiness, and this thing, and the earnings weren't great, and yet it still went off. I'm assuming it's a different class of investors because it's dividend based.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
That's what I'm attributing it to, but like, this is what I would have expected on Netflix like 6 months ago, yet we're still sitting here in freaking middle of November and we can't fill the gap. It's $30 higher. Like, what is going on? So I actually rewatched one of our first episodes during the week. It was, I think, the second one that we did, and we were talking about Lamb Research.
Oh yeah.
Right. And Lamb Research was like, oh, we're debating. You were like, oh, this is a bullish move. And I'm like, but why didn't it take out the high, right? Like with such strength. So to me, this Netflix is now sitting in that category, which is, dude, it's been bullish for a really long time, right? It's been acting pretty well for months now, yet it refuses to fill the gap. So like, what's sitting out there that I don't know about is what
I mean. Well, we've reached a point where it's much more than just like a 10 to 12% correction in the like the indexes, right? Like the market's been clobbered, individual names have been just like absolutely obliterated. I'm not going to begin to go into monetary policy like that. That's, I don't want to say over my head, but at the same time, I don't think that our old leaders are going to be what really leads us out of this.
But it has
the names that are expensive.
Which old leaders?
I mean,
all of them?
Name it. Yeah, you name it. I mean, I think they're all going to continue to do well. Like I'm talking like the expensive stocks that are like $200-$300 plus that are still, or even we could even talk about like Amazon, Google, Apple, all of those. But I don't foresee those being the leaders that take off coming out of this.
Yeah, but like, look at Apple, right? You go back to Apple for a second, Bags.
Yeah, I'm going back.
Yeah, like, Nick, this is the part, like, right? I'm watching Apple and I just don't understand, right? Like, on all metrics, Apple is trading expensive, yet it is the only stock that hasn't broken down. It's impressive, worrisome? And it's also a little worrisome because you could argue that if this starts breaking down, there's nothing that the market can do, right? Like, it's just weighted so heavy that so you can argue that this is because it's such a widely owned stock that it's going to take longer to distribute out, right? For sure. But then the other side is that you have Buffett, who says when it was at 134, he said, or 150, he said it's not. I would buy more, but it's just not cheap enough. So I would buy more. You know what I mean? Like, so that it's been one of those weird, like, why hasn't this broken down? Even Tesla broke down, right? The two things that were holding us up for quite some time were Tesla and Apple. And Tesla is just dying, right? Like, it's just, this is the Elon cycles. Every 5 or 6 years, his ego gets stroked because he's accomplished what he's accomplished, and so he starts acting the way he does, and then people sell, and it goes through its cycles. It's the same crap that has been happening for years. But like, even this broke down, and Apple just hasn't broke down. All the supply chain issues, all the COVID lockdowns in China, nothing. It's like, And you could argue that it's distributing, or you can argue that it's accumulating again for the next leg higher. I don't have a read on it.
The way I'm looking at Apple, at least right now, it's kind of it's in the middle. Like it's in kind of I want to say no man's land. Like it's in the middle of the range in what I'm looking at. Like you have basically the ceiling at about 180. You have a floor that's basically been at that 135, but I also kind of see around that like 105, 107. If you measure them, like if you measure the width of the range from like, let's say 140 to 180, you know, that's 40 points. So you measure that down, let's in the hypothetical that that Apple takes out, let's just say the 130. I would argue that the next stop is going to be in that 100 to 110 range.
Yeah, which is the 200 SMA as well, weekly SMA.
Yeah, so like it's in kind of just a churn range right now, and I kind of feel the same way with Tesla. Like, other than the fact that Tesla has taken out the lows, where like like you just said, Apple has.
But Tesla's down 50-something%, right? It's not like Apple's down not 50%.
No.
So when you're looking at it, Tesla's going down on. It's not a crazy amount of volume that it's going down on either, right? So, as you can see on Bag's chart here, it's interesting to me because if Apple does, and it's been pretty much 137 since August 2020.
Yeah,
since it's split. That's insane. We're almost 2.5 years from when it made that high, and we're still sitting there, and it just keeps holding that like 134 to 137 area, like week in and week out on Apple. So if you consider a market leader, you can say that it's what's keeping us together.
Yeah, definitely.
I think my question was more around just the overall, and we've debated this before. GP, you've brought up new leaders, and it sounds like, Nick, you're of the mindset of off with their heads with all the old leaders. I just don't know that I think there will be new leaders, but I don't think all the old leaders are going to just be cast aside.
No, I don't think so either. I think there's too much money hiding out there.
They can be sideways for decades.
For sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I'm.
All right. Okay. All right.
Which
so we're just not casting dispersion here and saying that Apple is no longer going to be one of the largest stocks. We're just saying Apple's moves aren't going to lead the rest of the market in the direction that they might be going.
So yeah, exactly. That's, and like if you're looking at from like a psyche perspective, is that 2020 was a pull forward of demand for a few years, right? So it hit its peak in 2020, which was like the peak demand, and the demand's kind of stayed in that area. So the stock has stayed in that same price range. So now it's whether it starts to show that it can reaccelerate growth on EPS and on revenue is what we need to see. And they might have, what the X factor we don't know is how much growth did they pull forward? Did they pull forward 5 years, 10 years, 2 years? That's what we don't know. So that's the holding pattern that's going on here, is it's assessing whether they've pulled forward only a couple of years and they start to reaccelerate, or as you can see with things like Amazon and Tesla and Google, that they pulled forward demand many years, right? Because it's right back down to 2018. And it's going to be hard for Amazon to potentially even get to that growth level again. They're a $500 billion a year revenue company.
You got off the train in Chicago.
Yep. That's a hindsighter one, but I think that's what's the assessment's what's going on here is trying to figure out how much forward demand did get pulled forward, right? How many years worth? So we've been sideways on the Qs since June of 2020. Right? So we broke out June of 2020 and we're right there. And we've been essentially sideways for a little over 2 years, if not longer, right? I think the original breakout was September. Sorry, April or whatever. I might have my dates next.
August. And then it finally broke out on Monday, November 20th. Or sorry, November 2nd, 2020. Anyway.
We held a pretty, looking at the monthly chart of both the Qs and the SPYs, we're holding a trend line that's basically held since September 2011. Actually, yeah, maybe even 2010.
I've got 09. Bless me.
Yeah, I'm looking at the same thing that you are.
Yep.
I'm assuming this is log.
This is always log.
I mean, I think we're going higher from here.
Whoa! Hey! Stop the press. We're going higher from here.
Yeah, in terms of like where the spiders are at, like I think that into year end, I think that we at least push into kind of like that. I don't know, 430, 450 area.
430, 450.
I'm so on the SPYs. Yeah, that's kind of where I think we're going. I think that the breakout last week,
that's breaking news, Nick. Sorry,
Why?
That's 15% up, 14.5% from here. Yeah.
SPY 430.
You said 430, 450.
Yeah, 430, 450. I think those are kind of the pivots we're going after.
So 10 to 15% higher from here.
Yeah. Whether we get there by the end of the year, I'm
over the course of the next 5 weeks.
Yeah, maybe in the quarter one too.
Okay.
Right. I see us kind of busting out of this channel, and I don't know. I think that in my opinion, which I mean, whatever. I think the lows are in.
I mean, I'm not mad at you for calling that. Like I like when we're bold and we say things with our chest. So when you said we're going higher from here, I'm like, wow, wowzers, McTrousers.
Well, I think to see some backfilling is going to be, we're going to see some backfilling. I think we're going to see some rollovers to see some gaps fill. But okay. I think that's just kind of, I think that the move on, what's the date? What date was that? The breakout on 11/10.
Yeah,
I considered that pivot, that daily breakout was on big volume and a confirmation that we're going higher from here. The measured move out of this puts us on a breakout of kind of the channel that we've been in. And if we bust out of that channel, I think that we'll start to, I don't know, I think we start to trend higher. How it kind of plays out, I don't know, but again, kind of like we're talking like Apple and Tesla, like those are the two that have basically, if those roll over, then I think kind of all bets are off, especially if Apple rolls over. But the only way the indexes are going to get dragged down anymore is if Apple rolls.
Yeah, or all of these start going to insane levels, right? Like
Right.
the POC, all-time POCs, the volume profiles on like Amazon stuff are sitting in the 40s, right? So if we start going back to those areas or 50s, that's where you start to see the indexes roll over at this point, in my opinion, without Apple also rolling over. If Apple just stays exactly at 137 for the next year, you'll need major rollovers in all the other names to kind of, especially with energy strength, which I still think is fake as I won't curse, but it is mind-boggling to see what XLE is doing versus oil.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I can't. I don't know. I can't. All I can say is trim and trail. Like, if you're in positions.
Yeah, I had some puts and I just rolled them forward because I'm like, this seems like it's gonna. I pushed them out and I rolled them forward, but it just seems like it's gonna drag for a little bit longer because I don't know what it is, but every moment that and like oil is just breaking down on a weekly basis, and I know that oil above 70 is good for all these companies. I'm not arguing that. It's just
The chart looks like hell.
yeah, and look, even gasoline futures are coming down. And so the conversation is that demand is not there. So if your theory is that all these stocks that have still another 40% to go because everyone thinks another leg is coming because of the impending recession, why the fuck are you buying energy? Right? Like, you don't think oil gets smoked? You don't think people stop traveling? You don't think demand goes through the bottom floor if a major recession like 2008 or 2000 hits?
But the
You're just-
we're
Keystone
kinda-
Pipeline.
What's that?
Nothing. I was just having a moment.
Yes, that's fine. You can have a moment, but like I think gasoline came in, it was expected to have like a 0.3 million supply and it came in at like 2.7. So even gas is losing its demand, right? So you have the recession that's happening in China already. If you have this massive global recession and slowing of demand overall that the Fed is hell-bent on doing, then what's the fundamental reason to buy oil here? And you're not, right? Oil is getting sold, but why are you buying XLE?
Because it had a massive run in 2022, and now chasers are adamant about it has to go higher.
Yeah, and that's my school of thought, and it's bullish, but it's not like wildly bullish, right?
No, it's not bullish.
It rejected the June highs.
Yeah, it's not bullish.
It's also not dying.
No, it's not dead, but it's not bullish.
But so Nick, to me, these setups that I've seen in my experience is that when the Kraken gets unleashed, it's going to be disgusting, right? Like,
Yeah.
like these type of movements and stuff like that is like you won't be able to trim and trail because you'll come to a massive gap down.
A Monday morning.
Yeah,
Face
whenever it
pounding.
happens, right? Whenever.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm talking about it, because I think it's important. Maybe I'm wrong, which is fine. And if you believe that I'm wrong, that's also okay. I'm wrong all the time. But I don't see the compelling reason to stay long energy at all here, right? Let it break out to new highs. Let it clear this area of congestion that's been formed over decades, right?
Yeah,
And then
absolutely. Absolutely.
It's the same conversation to me as gold. Like, I can buy gold at 1700 and be miserable for the next 6 to 8 months or 12 months or 24 months, or I can
Yeah.
buy it when it breaks out, right?
For sure.
Because that to me will be the easier play. And right now you're just gonna speculate on when it's going to break out. And so I missed $300 out of a potential $1,500 move. I'm not really worried, you know?
For sure.
So that's like, look, even oil's still breaking down here, right? It's below 80 again.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's not bullish.
Yes.
I like the setups in the individual names. Like I like XOM. I like what else do I like? I don't know if I like. I'm
Don't
not
say
sure I
Oxy.
like PXD.
Chevron.
No, Oxy, I do actually like. It looks like a big ascending triangle to me.
Okay.
I was thinking that we might get one more shake down to like the low 60s, like 62, 63. Before we do bust higher, but I mean,
just to me, like, again, I've been wrong on this for ages, but it looks like we have negative divergences going on. Just
sure.
But I've been wrong. I freely admit it.
Yeah, and technically it looks like it's topping, right? If you're looking at XOM, the last 3 weeks, if you go to the daily view, that looks like a topping formation, right? Like that doesn't look to me very bullish. But
I mean, what I like what I would argue is that like it's like each one of those daily bars, it's closing at the high of the day. We've had a couple like shakes, but the overwhelming majority of those closes are towards the high of the day.
yeah.
So like what I see in XOM is just like basically a consolidation range between 115 and 108.
But like, look at this and compare it to the Qs in end of November last year, right? Like the structure and the formation.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying for sure.
Right. So I hear you that it's kind of bullish and it keeps pushing and it's like in this sideways kind of distribution and it looks bullish. And then you get January 5th.
It was the tale of two cities. It was the best of times and it was the worst of times.
Right. You like that Thursday, I think it was January 4th, where we hammered and everyone was like, yes, we're going higher. Next day we opened, we reversed, and it's been murder. Right. So to me, the XLE and the individual names underneath, I don't just look at XLE, I look at the individual names underneath. They all look like this. And so to me is I'm not willing to get long any of these here because I need to see how it plays out. Right. Because if this is similar to that topping pattern after what 1,000% run in the XLE or something like that.
Yeah. Something crazy.
Yeah, what it went from not 1,000, sorry, 500%, 22 to 92, so 400% in 2 years. To me, this all just looks topping, and this year technically has been a challenge for sure. So it could be showing me a topping pattern, and then it just breaks out higher. And I would reckon to say if we do break out higher and it's on this like massive volume bar, then I'd be even more concerned.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, time will tell.
Time will tell.
What's on the top of your list?
So I think shorting the solars looks as another plausible thing here. I know that sounds really kind of counterintuitive here, but the move in FSLR is
Insane.
it's
Yeah.
insane, but it's also waning, right?
Yeah.
Like each push up is, so I don't know when. I'm not saying, I'm thinking around 175 is what I have, right, on FSLR. That's a big pivot area from what do I have on my chart, from 2011 it hit that top, and in 2009 it hit that top 175. So it looks like waning momentum into that 175. If we stall there, I'd be concerned.
Yeah, I brought that up a few weeks ago that the FSLR move was Captain Insano, and it's just kept going.
And to me, it should, right? It literally broke out of a 10-year base, came back to retest it just for shits and giggles, and now has moved higher.
Yeah,
So
it's been a while.
it should have never been at 60 in the first place, right?
No.
When it hit that.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So the move out of that kind of false breakdown is a fast move. The question is, how much more does it have to the upside? And around 175, I think really extends, even if you're looking at the flag breakout here, the flag from there was 146 to 115. So it's a 31 point move. And so 31 point plus 146 gets you to that 175 area as well, right? So the extension of the flag also puts you in, there's a few things for me that I think 175 to 177 becomes a really troubling area for FSLR to kind of break out from.
Yeah, I mean, at some point the music has to stop, right? Like it has gone from the 60s, it was in July, all the way up to 160s, and
It's fucking nuts.
it is fucking nuts. So I don't know when the music's going to stop, but it looks like it's winding down.
Yeah, if you're looking at the weekly, right, on FSLR, you had an inside red week on lower volume, and then the breakout was even on lower volume than that, right? So the momentum to me is waning. So that's what I'm looking at in terms of weakness areas. If the market does roll over, I think Netflix concerns me on an overall market perspective. Its inability to break higher and getting rejected by the weekly 50 SMA, which it cut through like butter in January, is also a concern to me. Overall markets,
Yeah.
it had not the greatest week, but ultimately it still closed within a couple percent of the prior week's range. And as I was saying to you, Nick, it looks like a 3WT, even with that shitty 1 week one candle.
Yeah.
It's the weekly closes have been really tight, but it's the one I'll be watching, because if this does break down, I think other stuff starts breaking down again.
Jason in our chat, just to be clear, I said I thought Tesla looked like garbage, but he wants to know if we're bullish or bearish or in between. I am not in a bull camp on Tesla currently, but that doesn't mean I'm not positive Tesla long term. The chart just looks like hell to me.
Yeah, and Tesla's known to undercut lows and then reverse higher. So I think that low is sitting right here.
Is this a don't buy right now?
I would need to see that reversal. I wouldn't be buying this.
Yeah. It's a falling knife.
Yeah, like it can fall to wherever. I do think that if we gap down on Tesla and we hold that 167 area and it reverses higher, I think that's probably a great signal for Tesla. But right now it's in free fall mode, and
that's basically the 167 area, that line that I just drew right there, Jason. But
yeah.
it can fall quite a bit further than that. I mean, just from a technical point of view.
Yeah, I can get to the 150s, I would say.
Yeah, that's where that next big volume bar is like 154, which would be like right around here.
But it's sitting right at the trend line breakout.
So nothing wildly favorable right now from us.
Yeah, but so like I to add to Nick's sentiment, right, about we're going higher from here, I absolutely agree with you on we're going higher from here. That's the QQQ chart I shared is.
Yeah, let's speak on that, GP.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really love the structure here. We're sitting right at the trend line. We did have a
Hang
week.
on, I'm gonna pull up your chart just so everybody can see what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Uno momento, por favor. Sorry, I gotta bring up the tweet.
Yeah, and we're going through levels of dead bodies as you're pulling up the chart, right?
You got that right.
That's exactly what we're doing. We're hitting a dead body level. Everyone's like, bury that shit, and
I see dead people.
But this is exactly so. Like, I don't do a lot of trend lines and stuff. I have them sometimes, but I like pivots, right? And I like to see levels, and levels to me, when you start looking at this, right, is like, ironically, we have the 1 year anniversary of Biden getting appointed tomorrow. And
and Trump's getting back on Twitter.
yeah, and
All right.
so it would be just purely classic if that marks us breaking out, right? Like the 1 year appointment of J-Pal. But ultimately, what, like, you'll see that on that chart that I shared there, is that we had that nasty move down 17% in 20 days into January OPEX. And we saw that massive capitulation bar. So everyone's like, oh, 20% correction. This is a good time to buy. And then they got dragged over the coals, bent over, all kinds of things, right? All kinds of things that are not nice to talk about, but it happened to them. And I'm part of that as well, so don't get me wrong. And then we came back in August and tested that exact freaking level, and they just went bananas. 334, and it held nothing. And then just straight down 334 to 255 in what, a month and a half. That's 80 points. To me, that's kind of crazy. But all the volume happened in that kind of the liquidation zone, and we've been just sitting there. And what I like about this is this time there's actually accumulation, as you can see on a couple of the green bars there. And the volume is heavier on the green side than on the red days. So it's starting to be a accumulation zone. So does this mean we're going back to all-time highs? I don't know. I don't think so. There's just too many dead bodies and too much macro.
Again, like the indexes could be in a range for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and so like we all know it's structural inflation and not, demand inflation. So the interest rates only do one thing, which is destroy demand, and destroying demand is recession. And so this can go on. We don't know what this is going to break. So this can go on for a while. But what I do like here is that we see a move. We hit the CPI. So what do we get? On last Thursday, we got surprise CPI to the upside to say we got a drawdown in inflation. And we pulled right into the CPI death bar from September, and we rejected it. We flagged right into the 9, and we're kind of holding the May lows, the liquidation zone. So I really like the look here that it's not going to be easy, as we've all seen in 2022, but I think the push from here gets us to that Jackson Hole area, and there's a decent amount of supply there. And I talked about this a couple times, which is the area where I think people finally said, "Oh shit, the Fed's for real," right? And so they began just liquidating at that point. So I think that becomes an area. And funny enough, it's now going to coincide with the declining 200 SMA. So that's an area that I think we're going to push to. I hope this week, but I think in the next few weeks. And I want to see how it behaves, because if it starts behaving like it did in mid-August, then or if you see a catalyst come out right around that area, that another leg down is coming, and it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be pretty at all.
No.
So this is the level I'm watching here. I don't think the surprise CPI data was the level. I think it's just the dead bodies that they're churning through, and the Jackson Hole level will be the one that I'd be watching quite a bit, right? We even had a bounce from that area that got rejected by that CPI candle from September. So there's going to be a lot of pressure there. So if we can push through that area, I think we're on to a much larger uptrend.
Yeah, I would agree. I like your to back it up. I like your point on levels and just playing it level by level, pivot by pivot. Once you start I mean, that's kind of what trends are built upon,
Yep.
As soon as trend starts, one pivot gets taken out, hopefully.
And we're not taking out pivots, right? So that's the thing. We are.
Yeah.
So what I was talking to the guys I trade with was tech is still pretty weak. It's still breaking pivots to the downside, but not to the upside. So you have to be careful of what's going on here and be aware of that. And then on the flip side, outside of oil, energy and the dollar are not breaking pivots to the downside, right? They're actually holding and then reversing before the pivots hold. So generally there's a cause for strength in those areas and a cause for weakness in tech. So you need to start seeing tech break through these pivots. Otherwise it's more of the same, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm watching. And so if you're looking at one of the ones that has shifted outside of the Dow Jones, take a look at XLF, right?
Goldman.
Yeah. So to me, if you go on the daily here, Bags.
I got you.
Right. It has hit this level for the third time now in the last 6 months. You're gonna have to zoom out a little bit. Right. This is the third or fourth time it's hitting this level. And each and every time it's closed below the 9. And this time it closed below the 9, but then it reversed higher. So that to me is a shift in character. But at the same time, what it did was it did this while it's sitting above the 200-day, which is what's changed. Yep. And yeah, so these are the shifts in characters you need to see on the tech front, right? Because you're starting to see it in other sectors. My opinion, of course.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. The financials have looked good. I keep Morgan Stanley on watch, and it's flagging above the key EMAs, and you've got the crossovers happening of the EMAs. Let's say another inside week, right, or another tight week here, and the rest of these guys are going to do this number, right? Like they're going to look more like this.
Yep.
Right. And you're going to have the 50 going like that, right? So that's constructive.
Yes. It is constructive. And so like if you're trading options, this is the advice I gave to someone Lyle was like asking me about this stuff. I'm like, if you're trading options and you normally trade like 2 weeks out on your setups, add a month and then add another 3 months and then add another 3 months.
Yeah, for sure.
Because dude, we've just been stuck, right, for the most part. So if you are trading options when you have good decent gains, take them. This is a day trading market. Even the big boys are in the day trading camp right now, right? That's the zero DTE call puts and stuff that's going on now. And now it's 5 days a week as of last week.
Which is this is crazy to me.
It's just gambling, right? It's
Yeah.
purely gambling at this point. Like when I first started, there was only monthly options. There was no weekly options ever. And Nick, you started way before me, so I don't even know if there was monthly options back then.
Well, the Q's
Yeah,
just
I
went
don't
to
know.
3 days a week in 2021, I think, right?
Yep.
But now it's anyway. Sorry, Nick. Yeah, you were going to say.
No, I've never ventured into the options game.
Probably the smartest move, man. That's why you're not gray like me.
Maybe. I mean, I've had my bouts with just margin in general. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't. If I ever got to a level where I wanted to trade options, honestly, I would probably just hire a trader to trade options for me.
No, I think so. If you want to trade options, you got to be quick, right? You can't. I don't think you can personally not be sitting in front of your computer, right?
Smash and grab.
Yeah. And I still think the best way to do options is to sell, right? Premium. So
Yeah. What Duzio talks about all the time, isn't it?
yeah, it just makes sense. They're all designed to. Is the design for options is decay.
Yeah.
So especially as they're starting to introduce all this stuff, it's more and more like this is not. It's all speculative. I get it. It's all gambling at the end of the day. So don't give me your esoteric arguments. But it's kind of nuts. This is full on gambling, right? Like we're gonna soon start to move to hourly options and then 5-minute options, and then there's gonna just be no stocks to trade. It's just gonna be options. We're gonna be charting options. Like it's just getting ridiculous on what they're allowing.
Hourly options would be insane.
No, I give up. At that point, you can call me in a few years when the options market essentially blows up and the Congress comes in and asks stupid questions. That's when I'll start trading options again if that happens.
That would be nutty, buddy.
But I'm already in the. You're at daily options. I'm in the moment of like, yeah, this is just a little too much. Something's gonna blow up here. Like someone's going to abuse this in a way that's going to be disgusting. Do you remember the flash crash, Nick?
Yep.
That was
Yeah.
that was all spoofing options.
That was what remind me how that played out again. That was like it was one dude, right?
Yeah, well, they always got to find one dude to blame, right? Because
Sure,
that's
sure.
the easiest way to do it. But all these institutions know what's going on. It's not like this one dude who doesn't know anyone was just doing whatever he wanted to, right?
Yeah, totally.
To move a market like that, right? It was known, and they're probably just waiting for him to screw up and collect the pennies on the dollars at that point and blame him, obviously. But it's never just one bad actor. He was just spoofing the options pricing.
It is all gambling at the end of the day, ain't it?
Yeah, I used to think it was more educated gambling, but with the introduction of all this stuff, it just doesn't seem like it anymore. Because the turns on the intraday, if you look at it, you can see the flow coming in, and it's just like, what is like, it's hard to be one direction on Monday afternoon and not be another direction 5 minutes later.
Yeah, definitely.
We haven't.
You guys seem
talked-
quiet. I seem to be talking the
No,
most.
no. I think all those were salient points, GP. I was getting ready to jump back to my beloved semiconductors. That was one of the things I was watching last week. And lo and behold, NVIDIA didn't have a great report, but it didn't exactly shit the bed either.
No.
All right. I mean, it did. I mean, for the week, it was down a little more than 5.5%, but as we've known in the past, that can be a 15% day on a bad ER day. So all in all, you kind of chalk that up as a not too bad.
But it's the other chips that are actually the.
We saw Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, take a huge position in Taiwan Semi. That got everybody real frothy. And geez, Buffett's probably in somewhere here in the 70s or 60s. So really nice spot to be on Taiwan Semi. Yeah, it was just a really interesting week, but you're right. It's not the designers as much as it's the foundry business that continues to be profitable, and Global Foundries still so strong.
How is this not the new leader? Whenever this market comes out of this crap hole that we're in,
Yeah.
how is this not the new leader?
This is 2 weeks in a
that
row we
weekly
brought up
is-
Global Foundries with no Randy to sort of shake his fists at us.
But that look at it's
It's
doing the
prettiest
things
looking chart out there.
it's doing the things you want from a new company, right?
Yeah.
It's basing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's basing on volume. So what they're telling you is that we want in, but not too high.
Looks
So-
good. I mean, it looks like a great chart. I mean,
Yeah, and that investor deck was one of the best investor decks I've seen in a while. So it's hard not to. This one seems like a set it and forget it type.
Congratulations if you picked this off in the low 40s.
I would agree with you, GP. I think it is definitely a set it and forget it trade.
Like if you get an opportunity to buy GFS in the 40s again, or even lower, to me, it's a no-brainer unless you get what they did to, what was that stock? D-Lo.
Yeah, they.
Oh, that's our boy
Ooh.
Zach's number, isn't it?
But look
Yeah,
at
but that
look at
didn't
that
even
volume.
look nearly as that chart doesn't look nearly as good though.
It did
I think
before, and then it died.
Yeah.
No, it's been looking weak the last couple of months, but it's funny how the candle on the second day had higher volume than the candle on the day before. So this
But
looks
still,
like
they took it to the woodshed on a 50% day. God
Yeah.
bless.
Those, I mean, let's look at the volume on that Thursday, Friday bar though. Like on
that. This looks like a spring setup to me, though, right?
yeah, absolutely.
This is I'm going to shake out everyone and their mother and then hit all-time highs again, right? And the question is, do you have the balls to buy it?
Really?
Just look at that that
I mean,
volume.
I see what you guys are talking about, but I mean, maybe it's just me. I don't see that as being appealing. I see the potential in what you're telling me, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know.
I think you
Not
close
so
back
much my
above.
kind of.
I wouldn't get long here, but above 15, I'd consider it. 15, what is it? 1520?
Yeah, that Wicklow. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I let all this. It's going to be a while before I think it turns, but These, unless it is fraud, then
If it is fraud, then FTX the hell out of it, man. Dude, speaking of, we brought FTX up last week. Some of the reports coming out on this shit over the past week has been insane. Like,
Dude,
they were just
I
buying
know.
properties out of with other people's money and shit. And anyway, I'm mind blown.
I just was like, I read it too. I read there was one, somebody put together like a thread, like a tweet thread on like, I don't know, 20 like mind-boggling things from this FTX thing. And like, I don't even know what to say.
Right?
Honestly.
it literally
Like-
just confirms everyone's sneaking suspicions about
Like,
crypto.
crypto's a fucking scam, and you
Yeah.
can't even
Oh my God.
trust. You can't even trust the people who are letting you trade it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And you know, when there's no regulation, it's part of the game, right? It's what kind of happens. Doesn't mean crypto's a scam. It just means there's going to be a lot of bad actors. There was a ton of people who traded crypto from 2017 to 2019 that never paid taxes on massive gains, right?
Mhm.
Damn.
What's that?
Damn.
Yeah,
Nope.
it's just what it is, and I know friends who have done it and all that other stuff. So it's not my cup of tea in those moments, but there's a lot of scammy parts to it when there isn't. It's not heavily regulated, and FTX is just showing you how much it can be. But this is, to me, is not, it doesn't mean crypto's a scam. It means that you can have a lot of scammers.
Well, but you may not think that, right? But all of a sudden, it gives other potential people who could or have thought of getting involved. It keeps them away.
Yeah, it to me, it kind of reminds me of the Y2K moment, right? Everyone's like, Y2K was a scam. Because everyone's like, oh, all the computers going to stop working as soon as it hits 2000, right? Because it's going to hit double zeros.
So funny. Oh my God, that was so funny.
Do you remember that though? Right? It was like
Yes,
literally the world was going to
Yes,
end.
yes.
We thought like
There was
the
more
power
than
grid was. Oh my goodness, that's so funny.
just the government alone. They estimated spent $100 billion to fucking get ready for this shit.
And then nothing happened.
Right? Exactly.
So
Right.
like it seems similar to me in that conversation is like, okay, yeah, we knew that there was going to be bad actors and they're getting flushed out, but what rises will be the same thing that we talked about last week, right? We just don't know what's going to be the rising value out of all this is.
Worldwide estimated more than $225 billion spent on Y2K.
Jeez.
Dude, that was the time where like they were literally paying IT Y2K consultants like $500 an hour. Right?
What's going to happen is we're going to go back to 1900. Like, no, we're not.
But so Bitcoin doesn't look terrible.
I think it
So
does.
my quick Y2K.
I'm not saying not terrible, but I think it's going lower still.
Quick Y2K story for you. My father's was in the banking business, and the amount of shit that they did at the bank because of Y2K is insane. And I can remember, I was quite a bit younger back then, 22 years younger to be exact. But I was like, so why are people like getting spam at home and like canned goods and shit? Like, what does the computer number have to do with like? And he tried to explain like, well, you're not going to go to the grocery store and it's not going to be able to ring up because the registers aren't going to work. It's like, so
buy cash.
Somebody can't just like write it down that I bought a gallon of milk, right?
I'd say that's probably more of a threat now than it was back then.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. Hey guys, we did an hour again.
Yeah. I felt like I talked most of that. So that
You
didn't
you
feel
did
good.
talk a lot, GP, and that's okay. We love your talking.
Yeah.
It made me feel 1% more bullish.
Well, it shouldn't because we're going to zero,
But
right?
Nick made me feel 3% more bullish because he
Oh, all
said
right.
it's up from here. So
Yeah.
I'm optimistic.
So I think the bonds are interesting. TLT, I thought was interesting. I also thought LQD was quite interesting. I don't like how it rejected that 106 kind of COVID low.
yeah,
But it looks constructive here, and then HYG also.
Gee, oh, I have HYG up. Yeah, HYG looks good.
yeah. We talked about HYG. I have lines on that chart, so that was brought up.
Yeah, and by Nick, when you say looks good, we all mean not the 2020 looks good, but the 2022 looks good.
Yeah. Yo, our standard, like we gotta lower our standards a little bit here.
Right. That's fair.
It looks good for 1%. Yes.
Yeah. Let's temper expectations.
We can see from 70.
It's going to 75.50.
But that, like, if you look at the daily on the HYG, that massive volume bar from early in October is just, it's where it's sitting right now. And the pullbacks have been on much lower volume. So I like what this is doing here. So, and then if you couple in like what's going on with the dollar and stuff like that, that we could be looking at much higher from here. But
well, I still have my bear socks and my bear long johns on. I'll leave you guys with this. Buddy over at the Charts for Charity, Stink Roach. He just posted a few minutes ago, got 8+ likes on a bullish Stock Twits post. Usually when it's 6 or 7, whether bullish or bearish, is what I'm hoping doesn't happen. So, so people are quick to mash the like on something. He's like, when that happens, it's usually the indicator it's going to go the other way. So, I was really quick to point out previously that I was looking for October. October, I said I thought was very important, and the first couple weeks of November. Well, we're through that, and to me, it just feels like we went from oversold to overbought real quick, and that doesn't feel good for me right now. So. Another week of bags sitting on his hands, I guess.
yeah, that
Nothing wrong with
makes
that.
sense. I think
I
that's
think
totally
that's kind of why I think it's kind of why I really don't have too much to add. It's been I feel like it has been difficult to, the McClellan, you probably see me tweet about it. It's really the only timing tool or oscillator that I really use, and we've been just kind of churning at like an overbought, like in the overbought reading like area. So it's tough to, and of course, and not to mention it's 2022. So like, it's tough to wanna, even the stuff that does kind of look good, it's tough to really wanna be in any kind of like significant size, or the conviction's not like, you're not pounding the table. Or at least
Yeah.
I'm not pounding the table, but
So I got a question for you then, Nick, right? Because
yeah.
I hear you on the McKellen stuff, and the daily seems to get overbought really quick, right? Like it's insane on how far and fast that thing goes up. But when you're looking at, so I'm looking at the monthly right now in front of me, and that seems to be in a better position, right? So so that is where like I'd start. To me, it's like the daily has been unreliable for many indicators. this year, right? Weekly and monthly, but that monthly McKellen is what looks, it's still negative 16 right now.
Yeah.
But it's pushing higher. And we still have like 7 more trading days in the month, so they can ruin everything in 7 days. Hey, I posted a Tesla chart like almost like a week before October ended, and it was green. By the time October ended, it was breaking lows. So.
We laugh because it hurts too much to cry.
Yeah, exactly. But so that like, I think a lot of the daily signals have been false for whatever reason. But the monthly and the weekly seem to be a little bit better, a little bit slower. So the McKellen monthly is the one that interests me quite a bit here because it's actually breaking higher and didn't make new lows when October made new lows.
I'm gonna pop that up on my thanks for pointing that out. It's not often that I pull that up, so I'm gonna
I'm
pop that
curious,
on my
like
screen.
think about it for a bit because I'm curious because I don't follow that indicator much and you do, so I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on the larger time frames for this indicator.
Yeah, let me
Post it on the twats.
Yeah, absolutely.
well,
All right, gentlemen.
sounds good. Alrighty, you guys have a good night.
Yeah, have a good night.
You guys
Thank
take
you,
care.
Bags.
Trade safe. Spoiler alert, if anybody's stuck with us this entire 66 minutes, we're trying to get a live podcast together.
Yes. Peace.